All right, so this is about 45 minutes worth of sculpting that I've sped up, so we'll get through it here in about 10 or 11 minutes. And I'm just going to talk through my thought process and what's going on here. So one of the things I kind of can't resist doing is adding little notes of human anatomy, even though this has got nothing to do with a human being. There's a little crossover in the forearm of the musculature. So it also just kind of adds some visual or organic element that a little more interesting. Using clay tubes here to flatten some of this out, get it a little bit more planar. Dam standard to help define these separate objects, separate pieces here. Something that feels kind of buggy. So this is all just dam standard with the lazy mouse. Little inset area, maybe a place to stick a pipe later or something. Some kind of housing for tubes. There's this sort of light weighting. You see it a lot in newer designs that come out of CAD tools where they use procedural approaches to adding little structural elements that make a piece stronger and removing geo where they don't need it, or not geo, I guess in this case would be whatever the actual material is, but somewhat magically, a lot of that light weighting stuff can look a little bit, a little organic, a little natural. Like, start to get the same kind of lattice patterns that you might see if you looked at bone under a microscope. So I try to echo some of that stuff here. Whatever, just like little feet. And now I need a place for these legs to integrate into the main body. So we're just going to build up something here using clay tubes. And dam standard to build something into the main structure that feeds into either side of the little round area. So I'm probably not going to deviate from these brushes for the whole time. I think there might be one little moment towards the end where I use Trim Dynamic. But for the most part, it's going to be clay tubes and dam standard. So I want to add these little jewel eye things here in the forehead. And I'm going to duplicate it. And then do my best to eyeball what this thing looks like when it's rotated back to its default values and then centered. And I didn't get it quite right, but it doesn't matter. You can just kind of, so I did a little mirrored weld there and Dynameshed it, so then I just smoothed it out, and that's going to be good enough. So this is a common problem when you have two subtools and you're trying to sculpt near one on the other. They can kind of interfere with each other. So I'll use some kind of, like in this case it was dam standard, some brush to give me an understanding of where I need to work, and then just hide it. So there was some 90-degree angles. I really try to avoid that as much as possible. So I just kind of filled that area in below the eyes there. And this is dam standard with Alt, so it's actually adding to the geo here. A little more layering of features around the eye. We'll probably continue that once we get into the proper retop, where it's a little bit easier. We'll just kind of push this stuff down, get it out of the way. And it felt like it was sort of the same thing over and over again, so I just kind of paved part of it out. And we've got this, it's kind of a straight line on the bug itself, but when I get into do the retop, I'll probably add a little more variation there. So this is just the flatten 404 square alpha. And I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to stick the wing, I think. Maybe that comes a little later. So this area right here, I'm going to try to do a cloth effect. I think I mentioned it earlier. So I need to kind of separate it from the structural elements. It'll be stiffer. So I think that's what was going on a moment ago. And now I'm just adding some kind of interesting pattern. This is the layered shell area here. And I like to flatten parts out and push stuff in and just give it a little more of an interesting shape. Hard to say how much that's going to translate into the retop. And I don't know, at some point over in this area, maybe we'll have like a little exhaust thing, so that's kind of what that is. Kind of flattening some of the stuff out so it doesn't feel quite so bulbous. And we had a big flat straight line there, so I think I'm just adding some variety. More of that same stuff there, just flattening out the round forms that you get if you do a direct dam standard line. Just experimenting with different buggy features here. So this is the standard brush. I don't use it a lot, but it is occasionally useful. And now I'm just going to spend a little bit of time making those smaller leg insert areas a little more integrated into the form here. And that's just a big straight line running down there, so I wanted to go in and add some variety. So it feels like these things are individual elements that are happening at their own place along the border between the top and the bottom. I'm kind of playing with this. I don't actually love that shape there, but it's so clearly present in the reference. I feel like it's something I should make an effort to include. Talk about those two little half ovals in the top. Now this is where I'm adding in the little inset for the wing. And just trying to break up any straight lines so that everything has a sort of a bit of innate organic flow to it while still being fairly clean. And a little center line on the bottom there. And then this is the trim dynamic. So this is giving some of those rounded areas an even more planar feel. Again, it's hard to know how much of this is going to show up in the retop, but it's better to have it in there so I at least kind of know what the target is. I'd kind of changed my mind about those little spikes on the knee. So this is not unusual. I just Dynamesh it together, do a mirror and weld, remove the interior, and then go ahead and Dynamesh again, and it'll fill any of those holes in. And at some point I probably added a subdivision, and I can tell that my geo is just kind of falling apart there under the strength of the dam standard, so adding a little bit more in with clay tubes. And that's going to be the flatten brush, kind of organize things a little bit. So I'm just sort of doing my best to echo the frequency of stuff in the front leg. I was really pressed for time. You could probably just redo build the front leg all the way and then just duplicate and scale some of those pieces, but it only takes a few minutes. This way you get a little extra variety. There's probably periodic recalculations of the Dynamesh here as well. That happens pretty quickly though, so it can be hard to catch. And there's that same thing with the kind of echoing the human forearm musculature just barely. And if one part goes out that I want to, there's a curvature on one part, then I'll usually try to have the other part go the other direction. Here we are, just getting rid of some of those straight edges. There's a weird little corner thing there. So we're adding a little bit of curvature. And then I didn't really feel the need to rebuild the last leg. But we're going to go ahead and reposition these so they fit into the spaces where they're supposed to go. And there you go.